To my far left is Representative Rosalie Vincent of Revere. To her right, Representative Jeffrey Roy of Franklin. To his right, Representative Sean Dooley of Norfolk. And to my far right, Representative Jonathan Zlotnick of Gardner. Today's hearing will be on a late file bill relative to curriculum and assessments. A copy of the agenda has been made available to you. We may take legislators out of order, but we will make every effort to alternate them with members of the public. I would ask that for the use of recording devices and photography, while permitted, if you are using them, please make sure that they do not disrupt the conduct of the hearing. I would also ask that you turn off all cell phones with respect to any noise that they may make. We will begin the hearing with House Bill 4094, an act to ensure quality education. Under the rules of the committee, testimony is limited to 3 minutes, and as you can see, there are a large number of people here. So I encourage you to limit your testimony and to not be repetitive. If someone has already made your point, simply indicate you agree with that rather than extending the hearing to the point where some people may have to leave before they get reached. Please note the committee will hold an executive session immediately following the hearing in order to take action on the bill from this hearing. I will now turn to those who have signed up to testify. We will start with Representative Laurel.
Thank you, Chairman, Vice members of the committee. I appreciate this opportunity to discuss House 4094, and I hope that you will report it out favorably. I filed this legislation in April because of contact with my teachers at an MTA meeting. They're very concerned about the number and the extent of the changes that have happened in recent years regarding the teacher evaluation system, the district determined measures, as well as the English as a second language federal requirement that they are dealing with. So they were very concerned about the implementation of the pilot park program. So as an effort to help my teachers and advocate for my community to provide more information before they make the decision to go with to choose park or MCAS, I filed legislation that will simply pause to get the information from the Department of Education so that communities have an understanding of what the financial impacts of this new direction will be. So that's the impetus of this, and I think that we need to have more information from the Commissioner of Education, from the Department of Education, before we continue to go down this road. It's simply unclear to me on too many fronts why we're moving in this direction and how much it's going to cost. I would respectfully ask for your support of 4094. I also want to just clarify that during the budget cycle, this amendment in a form did move through. There was an exclusion of the funding piece of this, but it did move through, asking for the commissioner to provide a cost analysis to the 351 cities and towns of how much the park is going to cost. So I appreciate the opportunity to be here, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Are there any questions for the representative? Representative Dooley?
Representative Laurel, are you okay with the funding aspect being taken out of this? Prefer to have it in it? What is your...
So the legislation as it is filed would stop and pause funding until that information is provided by the commissioner. But I'm willing to, we want the information. So if he's willing to give us the information, the funding piece is negotiable, but I want to make sure that we get the information for our municipalities, because this is a huge issue that has not been discussed widely in the media, and it's going to, in the fall of 2015, the Department of Education will be deciding between MCAS and the park. So that's why it's such a critical issue right now to have that information before the decision is made. Thank you.
Any other questions for Representative Laurel? Seeing none, I thank you for your testimony. We'll now move to the first person incorporated. Deborah McCartney.
So I just come in.
Yes, just sit down, identify yourself, and you can limit your testimony to 3 minutes. And if you have anything written that you wish to submit, that's fine.
My name is Debbie McCarthy. I'm a 5th grade teacher from the town of Hull. I got out of school yesterday, saw something last night, and jumped on a boat today. I've never done this, so please bear with me. I'm the daughter of a teacher, a mother of a teacher, a sister of a teacher, and a public school teacher. And I just want to share 3 quick stories about why I'm in support of this. We need to slow down. In town of Hull, we were lucky enough to get selected for the park. Student in our community who's on the spectrum, whose caregiver happened to be away, and decided that he wanted to make sure that he really focused on this test, and he took 2 of his meds and spent the night in South Shore Hospital. Because of all the testing that's going on in a district like mine, I'm an inclusion classroom, and since January I started to keep track. 32 days that students in my room were not getting service on their IEPs because the people in my community who do that in the school system had to go service kids on an IEP who were taking the park, who were taking the MCAS, or there was an IEP meeting. This particular boy in my classroom, reading at a 2nd grade level, his parents are over at Cape Verde. He's been waiting for them since he was 4 years old for them to come over. I'm advocating for them. This is too fast. And the last piece that we really need to find out about what's going on in classrooms, 10 years ago, when we had No Child Left Behind, as a 5th grade teacher, I would have a paraprofessional in my room provide Title I services. 10 years later, I don't have paraprofessionals in my classroom. The paraprofessionals are 2 to 1 on a child who truly belongs in a collaborative setting. But we can't afford that. And just Monday, I had a paraprofessional who had a bruise the size of a softball. They get bit, kicked, and spit in a public school because we can't afford. And so I'm asking that we just slow down and stop. And I'm done. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Just in case anyone has any questions. Does anyone have any questions? I would just like to thank you very much for taking the time to come here and testify, and also to indicate how much I appreciate the issues you raised. I would say that they go beyond this particular bill. Funding appears to be a very serious issue where you are. In addition, issues relative to special education, which we are continuing to look into. So I just don't want you to think that you're
No, I thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. I'd like to recognize my co-chair, Senator Sonia Diaz, to my right, has arrived. We'll now go to Representative Diaz.
Thank you, Chairwoman Pike, Chairwoman Diaz, and other distinguished members of the committee. Just quickly here to testify in support of 4094. This is an issue that I think really does deserve some serious consideration, insofar as the fact that I think everyone can look to Massachusetts and suggest that we have done the best nationwide as far as our educational standards. We are the best on the NAEPS test in math and English, 4th, 8th grade, all the way through, and we've really proven ourselves. And that has been a concerted effort by the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. And we've done that through the MCAS. My fear is that we're moving to a system, a federal system, that I think by all standards we are the top and we're going to equalize. And I'm concerned that the high standard that we've had that has really raised everyone is going to be diminished if we don't take a serious look at it. We don't know what the costs are. I think we can look at our healthcare system. We were at the top of the heap when it came to healthcare. The most people were covered under our healthcare system. We've moved to a federal standard. We had no idea really what the costs are. We're starting to get an understanding of what those costs are. We're spending $90 million, and I know that this is specifically directly to the Affordable Care Act, but the reality is we've moved quickly, and now we're stuck. And so we're spending a great deal of money. This is asking, let's take a cost analysis of it, because it is a very significant thing. I mean, what is more important than our educational standards? And so I ask you to take a serious look at this, because my fear is that because this is being pushed on us by the federal government down to us, that we're going to move to it. I know there's probably some money attached to it, but my fear is that there could be a cost. So I simply ask once we have a cost analysis, we'll have a better sense, and I think our communities will have a better sense. I know that I did a meeting not too long ago with my teachers in the district, and they were concerned about it. They felt like this was being hoisted upon them. They didn't know. They were just getting comfortable, to be honest with you, over the many years of the MCAS and dealing with those things and all the testing requirements, and now shifting to another avenue of educational standards was a concern. So I ask you to please take a look at that if you can, and I hope this bill is considered favorably.
Thank you. Any questions for Representative Houston? Seeing none, thank you very much for this. Jennifer Dyer.
Good morning, I'm Jennifer Dyer from Norfolk, and I support 4094 for the following reasons. We have the best standards and assessments in the country, as proven by our students' achievement year after year on the NAEP tests. We would be paying for something for which there is absolutely no evidence that it will do what it proclaims, paying for something for which costs were never estimated prior to adopting, and they were adopted before they were even written. I mean, would you buy a house without having it inspected? Would you take on a mortgage if you didn't know you could afford it? I feel that our kids and the taxpayers deserve a bit more due diligence. And we would also be paying for a surreptitiously developed database which violates every child's and every family's right to privacy. The lack of transparency and behind closed doors process is truly disturbing, and the prospect of unintended consequences as it relates to our freedom down the road should be downright frightening to everybody in this room. Parents who are against Common Core in part are not against standards or assessments. The standards we have work just fine. Our state is capable of developing its own standards, and our teachers were as equally capable of developing high-quality, creative curriculum to teach to those standards. PARC and Common Core will take away all that our state has already spent millions on and worked so hard to develop, and it will take away our teachers' abilities to be creative and flexible with our diverse students. Why would we pay for copyrighted standards that cannot be changed? Why pay for standards that aren't research-based? Why pay for something that's being imposed by bureaucrats and corporations whose relationships are so intertwining, it's quite questionable. We've all seen how our federal government fares when it attempts to impose a one-size-fits-all approach to a complex situation. One-size-fits-all may bring economies of scale to manufacturing, but we're talking about our kids, not widgets. The methodology, the lack of testing, the lack of information, the lack of transparency, the similarities to the healthcare takeover are striking. Do you really want to risk that kind of failure with another untested, unproven federal program being imposed on our kids? So why spend untold millions that we don't really have when on any given day school districts and states are passing legislation against it? I've done my research both for and against, and statements that I've read really stick out in my mind. For us in Mass, there is no need to follow those whom we already lead. And if Common Core and PARC tests are as great as supporters proclaim, they'll be great 3 or 4 years from now. So thank you for listening to my concerns. I appeal to your inner sensibilities, not as politicians, but as parents, as taxpayers, and ask you to use common sense and support this bill. Please help keep Massachusetts schools #1 in the country and keep our state from spending money we don't have for something we don't really need. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. I would ask that you refrain from any clapping or any other indicator of support or disagreement. That takes up time, and it means that the hearing will go on longer, and some of you may not be able to testify. That is the general rule in all hearings in the State House. So thank you. Any questions for Ms. Dyer? Did you have one?
Just let it go.
Seeing none, thank you for your testimony.
Thanks for coming. Not quite. You riding with Sean this morning?
We should carpool.
Too good at carpool. I couldn't agree with you more on some of the points today, and keeping in mind that Horace Mann lived probably about 3 miles from you, and we've done a great job with his legacy here in Massachusetts of making us be at the top of the heap. I don't want to see it compromised. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. I'd also like to recognize that Senator Richard Russ has joined us, and I see Representative Ferguson also joining us.
Doing the in and out, in and out, in and out. Representative Ferguson.
Thank you, Madam Chairs, members of the committee. I actually was coming down to just to review the testimony. I wasn't going to speak, but I do. Thank you for giving me the opportunity. I will make it.
Now that he's here.
In the interest of the time and the number of people that want to testify, I also want to lend my support and echo the words of my two colleagues, Rep. Royal and Rep. DiMacedo. This is a tremendously important issue. I've met with my teachers in my district, and they are extremely concerned over this new direction we're looking to take. So I would ask the committee to look at it closely and hopefully, in your wisdom, report the bill out favorably so we can have a larger debate on the issue. So with that, thank you very much.
Thank you. Any questions for the representative? Bill Nestor?
You did a wonderful job pronouncing my name. Chairman Peisch, Chairwoman Chang-Diaz, members of the Joint Committee on Education. My name is Bill Gilmeister. I am a school committee from Tantascoro Regional School District. And I want to make clear that I'm here on my own, making my own personal statements. I am not speaking on behalf of Tantascoro. I am asking you to report House Bill 4094 out favorably. What I'd really like to share with you is just some decisions that Tantascoro has actually made with regard to the Common Core federal standards as well as the park testing. Since 2010, when the Board of Education embarked on the horrible road of adopting Common Core and now the park, Tantascoro has been out front in its opposition, both in resolution on the committee as well as asking its delegation to file legislation in opposition to the Common Core and asking the Board of Education to reverse its decision. Time and again, when this issue comes up, we come up with the same things time and again, and that is loss of local control. We are losing control of our standards to an unelected and unaccountable set of individuals that we have no way of controlling. It's copyrighted material, the standards are, as I understand it, and the loss of local control, I think, is a tragedy, particularly since, as you've already heard, Massachusetts has arguably the highest standards in the nation. And as I understand, the Common Core standards, they are below what we have here in the Commonwealth. And I would not want to see that diminished in any particular way. Also, the other thing that comes up is we've already spent millions of dollars developing our standards over the past 20 years since the Ed Reform Act. And now we're going to spend, you're asking, or the Board of Education is asking Tantascoro Regional School Committee to spend even more money to realign our curriculum frameworks and all the other things that we are doing. This bill that is before you will give the legislature a sobering look at the path that the Board of Education is taking us down. When our standards were developed, there were hearings throughout the Commonwealth over and over again, public hearings for at least a year developing information. Common Core standards in the park has had no hearings in the Commonwealth. They've had nothing, no input from committee members or anything. So I ask you to report favorably on House Bill 4094. Thank you very much.
Any questions for Mr. Gillis? Seeing none, I thank you.
Thank you.
Michael Donnelly?
Madam Chair, honorable members of the committee, good morning. My name is Michael Donnelly. I'm the staff attorney for Massachusetts Member Affairs and Director for International Relations for the Homeschool Legal Defense Association. I'm also an adjunct professor of government at Frederick Community College, where I teach constitutional law, and I've provided a full copy of the testimony. I'm abbreviating my spoken points here in the interest of time. Our nonprofit is based in the DC area, and primarily dedicated to serving home educating families. We represent around the world hundreds of thousands of families and individuals with many thousands of members from Massachusetts. And I've come here today to urge you to report favorably on this particular legislation that caused the implementation of public assessment in Massachusetts. Now, this is about public schools, but homeschoolers have to care about this. Well, this is tied to the overall system of the Common Core. And we believe that it will create hurdles for our constituents in terms of getting into higher education as well as getting into career opportunities later on. But we also care about the education of children in our country overall and education in general. We're concerned about the process that's followed to implement this Common Core system as well as the PARCC assessments. It's easy to understand why cash-starved education systems in the state would want to go along with this. I mean, we can say there are hundreds of millions of dollars from the federal government and get free, new, and improved assessment in the process. What a deal. But is this how education standards should be developed in secret with very little public input? Is that how you want to develop standards in your state where you guys are at the top of the heap? I used to live in Massachusetts. I lived here for a long time. I had a company in Massachusetts and was through twice, and that's where I got my degree. Is that the kind of process you want to have here in Massachusetts? I don't think you do. Our organization can hardly keep up with the legislation followed around the country on this issue. 500 bills around the country that delay or defund or replace Common Core. The New York Teachers Union recently, representing 600,000 teachers retired and active, withdrew their support for the Common Core. The MTA recently elected Barbara Mataloni, who's on record as being opposed to Common Core and PARCC assessments. Bill Gates himself recently said he thinks we need to stop and pause. That's what this legislation is all about. It's significant when you've got home educating families on one hand and teachers unions on the other coming together to tell you need to slow down and reconsider this. That should cause you proper policymakers to reconsider. When you look around the country, South Carolina, Oklahoma, Indiana, or a few states who just decided to pull out of the whole system. A dozen states have pulled out of the testing consortia recently because they want to have more control over the process, which you won't have if you continue to stay in the park. In New Jersey, just yesterday, the Assembly passed a bill very similar to this bill that would pause implementation. Connecticut Governor Danny Malloy signed a similar order in March. There's a lot going on here, and you need to think about that. People are concerned about the Common Core not just because it's a set of standards that are hastily developed, but about how it treats people. PARCC is like an end-of-the-line quality control checklist that drives a system that treats schools like factories, teachers as assembly line workers, children as raw materials, and parents and civil society in general as mere shareholders. At the end of the day, you're responsible for educating children in Massachusetts and people here in this room with the parents of those children. Education is really about attaining human flourishing and empowering people to become who they can become. And the centralization of, I've asked for 20 seconds. Centralization of this system crushes the spirit of teachers, pulls parents out of the process, stresses children out, treats people as numbers and data. I'd urge you to take this opportunity, as others around the country are doing, to reassess and pause and think about this path that you're going to take.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any questions for Mr. Donovan? Representative Wu?
I don't want to put you on the spot. Yes, do you have a number of homeschool children currently in Massachusetts? Or an approximation?
Probably between 20 to 40,000 children. There's 2 million homeschool children around the country, which is about 3 to 4% of the school-age population. So I think you take that 3 to 4%, you could probably apply that to Massachusetts and get a number that's pretty accurate. Thank you. Yes, sir.
Tell us just briefly, what is the intersection of the children who are homeschools with the current system?
They can take the MCAS, they're not required to, they're committed to, some do, some don't. That's a good question. And of course, that's an intersection of the homeschool population and the Common Core as well. There is no requirement for homeschool families to use a particular curriculum. However, in Massachusetts, homeschool families do have to get permission to homeschool, and so the superintendent and the school board, school committee, they look at the plans that homeschool parents provide. And so again, it has an impact because they're going to be going down this path. They're going to be using that as a way to evaluate our constituents. And there's no legal requirement that they have to fit within the state standards. But as you go down a particular path, there's a natural pull on our constituents as well. And again, we feel like parents are the ones who ought to be directing the education of their children. And when you create a system that is going down this path, it has a natural, it floats every boat, it has an impact on everyone in the entire country. It's very Appreciate the opportunity.
Antonio Foster.
My family moved there less than 3 years ago, and we chose Cambridge over other communities because of the public schools. However, from the moment that we moved there, the programs that we wanted for our children started to be taken away. We chose the King Open Public School for its K-8 grade structure, the multi-grades, social justice program, and independent studies program. And essentially from the moment we arrived in Cambridge, all those programs were started to be taken away. And we started to hear that it was the teachers were having real difficulty teaching to the test, and they needed more time. They needed to not have the distraction of teaching to 2 grades at one time, which provides enormous social benefits for the children, but not so much for teaching to the test. I volunteer in both my children's kindergarten classrooms. My youngest son is 5, and he's in junior kindergarten, so 4th school year. And I was extremely troubled by what I saw there. The kids were being punished for wiggling. My son got punished every day for wiggling when he wasn't disturbing people. The boys were having a really hard time coping with all the stresses that they were under. The 4 and 5-year-olds would have their recess taken away if they didn't get through their work board for the morning, or if they were struggling, they would get their recess taken away. And it was always the same children, including my son, who's just simply a lively 4-year-old. And then Susie Sluter's resignation letter was published in the Washington Post. Her classroom was the classroom next to my son's, so this is the same school. And I finally understood all the struggles I was seeing. I had spoken to his teacher, I had spoken to the principal, nothing had changed, and then Susie's letter really crystallized it for me, that the stresses of having to teach to the test and get the kids ready for the test were in kindergarten already, where my sons were. I attended a meeting on Art and Common Core that was given by our school district, and I left that meeting astonished to find I was about to start homeschooling my kids. The meeting presented the fact that they're going to reduce the number of things that they teach the children, and just nothing about it seemed age appropriate for my kids. And I asked questions about the age appropriateness for kindergartners, because I'm seeing that my kindergartners are having problems. And I found out later that no experts on early childhood education or early childhood psychologists have been on the board that created the standards for K through 3. So I have taken my children out of public school 4 weeks ago to homeschool them. Number one for the,
Yes, you do.
number one because they're having a terrible time. They hate school already, and I want to provide them a love of learning. Number 2 are the serious concerns I have for their privacy and what that's going to mean down the road. And number 3, I do want to say we're in a Commonwealth, and I don't think we should be sending our Commonwealth to large private corporations that are international. That money will not come back to our community. And Pearson company, just one second. Pearson owns assessment companies, software companies, textbook companies, teacher training companies. They are going to be making money on every aspect of the park. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Any questions for Ms. Foster? Thank you for your testimony. Donna Carraro?
Good morning. Hi, my name is Donna Colorio, and I am here in support of H4094, an act to ensure quality education. As a former Worcester School Committee member, a mother of 3, an adjunct professor, and an MTA member for the past 22 years, I understand the difficulties school districts face. I had the opportunity to visit all 44 schools in my district. Each and every year, our district funding increases, while our discretionary funding does not. PARC is an unfunded mandate that will cripple our districts. I've had the opportunity to spend 2 days in Boston this year with 12 other educators throughout the state for the convention. it was the general consensus that we need to put a pause on park. I just want you to imagine, I'm going to take you into a classroom right now. I want you to visualize 33 students in your class. 3 students just came in from the charter school. 2 students were transferred mid-year. 6 students are chronically late. 5 students haven't taken their medicine, and 1 student has been suspended. 7 students are on IEPs, and 3 of them have been modified. And today, you're going to give the park assessment. This is insanity. Some districts are sacrificing teachers, as you've heard, over IT park upgrades. The focus and energy should be on improving teaching and learning, not introduction of new tests, unfunded tests at this time. I'm worried about students with special needs, students that are stressed out from excess testing. In a publication by Mass Teachers and Parents United, Park will double standardized testing time for student. More time testing, less time learning, more time testing, more money spent, more time testing, more stress on the student. What is the downside of wait and see? Let's run a cost analysis on Park. Within the last couple of weeks, the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation is advising a 2-year moratorium on Park in Common Core. The Park Consortium started in 23 states, it's now down to 9. Just this week alone, Cambridge, Peabody, Uxbridge, Raynham, Freeman, Ham, Lexington, Hamden, Wilbraham, Norfolk, Linfield, Grafton, Anderson, Hingham, just to name a few, are staying with the MCAS for 2005 because Park is unproven, underfunded, and untested. You have the power as a legislative body to stop the madness and keep Massachusetts #1 in the country for education. We have a system that works. Why fix something that isn't broken? I strongly urge you to pause on Park until we have a cost analysis done. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Are there any questions for Ms. Flores? Seeing none, thank you for your testimony.
Thank you.
Michael John.
My name is Michael Jandry. I teach philosophy at Middlesex Community College, and I'm here to testify that, in my opinion, Bill 4094 needs to be upheld. I believe that this bill provides an adequate framework for understanding the specifics of the park. I think what will come out is that this amounts to an unfunded mandate that deprives districts and communities of the ability to allocate funds as they see most fit and necessary for their constituents. I live on the North Shore, and I've gone to various districts, some of them better off, some of them less better off, less well. What I've seen is that when Park is implemented, you'll have more coaches to implement, especially the Common Core curriculum. There will be fewer jobs for teachers. Class sizes will probably increase, and school programs for enrichment will be curtailed, as we heard from the lady from Cambridge. Less well-off districts. In fact, yesterday I was sitting next to someone from a math professor, a teacher, and he told me that the cost of bringing in Park would mean that they would have to buy computers which they don't have and don't have the money for in order to just conduct the testing. So there's this very candid approach, the focus on testing that every educator is very concerned about. There is an additional set of numbers that I think you should know and people in the Commonwealth should be aware of. It's the fact that the cost of administering Park per student is $30 per year. And the expected or built-in rate of failure by Park is 30%. There are additional things that I think are very positive in this bill. It causes a discussion about the architects of Park as well as of Common Core. If we could put within the same room the Ms. Mitchell-Chester, the Commissioner of Education in Massachusetts, who happens to be the president of Park Inc., and also the chairman of governors of Park, in addition to David Coleman, who's the chief architect of the Common Core, and Bill Gates, who, as we all know, is the chief bankroller of the Common Core Initiative, to the tune through the Gates Foundation of $2 to $2.5 billion. In addition to Senator Stosky, who developed the MCAS, highly successful. Tom Birmingham, Bill Wells, and representatives from the Pioneer Institute, I think we would all get a very clear picture of why we should stick with MCAS and put aside part for that. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Are there any questions? Seeing none, I thank you for your testimony. I now like to recognize Senator Tarr, and I apologize, I didn't know.
It's okay, Madam Chair. I appreciate you very much for taking out of turn, and I know that you have many testifiers to hear from today, and so I'll attempt to be as brief as possible, but knowing me, you know that that's a relative task. I am also here on behalf of Senate Bill 4094, and Madam Chair, I appreciate the opportunity to offer just a couple of thoughts. I had the honor of being in the House of Representatives when we adopted the Education Reform Act of 1993. And a critical component of that debate was how were we going to have a standardized test that could be meaningful and productive, both for professional development as well as for the advancement of students in our Commonwealth. And the legislature was heavily involved in that, and it was not adopted without controversy, as you may remember. The fact of the matter is the test did propel us to be one of the leading states with regard to academic achievement, particularly in math and in English language learning. And as a result of that, I don't think we should abandon that component lightly. I believe that we should be equally as involved in the adoption of PARC as we were in the adoption of MCAS, and to do that, we have to have good information. Now, I understand that Senate 4094 contains, as it's written, a prohibition on the expenditure of funds to further develop PARC. I'd certainly be willing to talk to the committee about relaxing that requirement, but I do believe this. I believe that we need to have good information about the cost benefits of this particular form of examination. And I believe, Madam Chair, that we should also have an apples-to-apples comparison, which means indicating that we may need to spend some dollars to modernize MCAS and to add the additional components which have not yet been executed. But in that apples-to-apples comparison, we have a stake and we have a role. And at a time when, particularly through the good work of the Senate Chair of this committee, we're trying to revitalize and reestablish the Foundation Budget Review Commission, where we're challenging assumptions about whether we're spending adequate amounts on other things such as instruction and special education transportation. We have to choose carefully. We have to choose carefully because our resources are limited, and we have to choose carefully because I believe we want to continue to lead this nation and not be drawn toward the center of the effort. We want to continue to lead the effort. And the thing that's gotten us to lead the effort is the test that we currently use. So while I certainly am open-minded about the process, I believe this bill enables us to be involved in the debate. It requires 4 public hearings, which will allow others to be involved in the debate and the discussion. And by December, it will provide us with very important information before we take a chance on the future of kids in this Commonwealth and an education system that has been touted throughout the world as a national model. I appreciate your consideration of the bill. I hope that you will act favorably, and I appreciate the opportunity to be taken out of turn. And I know for the record, I have 16 minutes to spare. Seconds.
And I appreciate your working with the time.
Take a deep breath.
Are there any questions for Senator Tarr? Seeing none, thank you very much for this. Julie Coker? I mispronounced that. Sorry.
Thank you for this opportunity to express my thoughts and concerns on the dilemma that our Massachusetts districts are facing today. My name is Julie Coffey. I'm a North Reading resident. I'm an educator, but more importantly, a parent of school-aged children. With the impending June 30th deadline, districts are currently scrambling to decide whether their students will take MCAS or PARC. In my district, I have heard repeatedly that PARC is inevitable, so we should just go with it. I refuse to accept this position. I have major concerns with PARC's implementation. My first question for you: are Massachusetts school districts truly ready for PARC implementation? Can they afford PARC's increased technology demands, such as devices, network upgrades, and tech support staff? My second question for you: are Massachusetts teachers teachers truly ready for park implementation? Can they handle the overwhelming burden of preparing our children for a test that they themselves are not familiar with? My third question for you. Are Massachusetts students truly ready for park implementation? Can they handle a new, unfamiliar, timed test that would now occur twice a year? I request that you delay park. Don't waste my child's time on what could be a stressful, anxiety-provoking trial test. I apologize for the redundancy, but it's important to repeat. Please preserve Massachusetts' exceptional education system. Our state, towns, and school districts have invested substantial time and money into our pioneering educational initiatives. Massachusetts is the exemplary standard by which other states model their efforts. Let's continue being leaders. Please support this bill.
Thank you. Thank you for the goodness of your remarks. Are there any questions? Seeing none, thank you very much. Lena Simone.
Good morning. Thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to speak to you. My name is Lena Simone. I live in North Reading, and I'm speaking to you as a parent of 2 children. I'm embarrassed to say that although I knew about COMTE, I was quite unfamiliar with park until just a few weeks ago. After speaking with many other parents in North Reading and other communities, I realized that most knew little or nothing about park as well. My own school committee was prepared to vote on June 9th whether to choose park or MCAS for next year. When I attended the meeting, much like Ms. Gopke, I was told that park was inevitable and we might as well jump on the train now or get left behind. My question is, why is this train moving at lightning speed, especially when there are so many concerns being raised by superintendents, school committees, and parents such as me? A major concern of mine is financial strain it will place upon communities like mine. An article by the Boston Globe on June 16th of this year stated that, quote, about 2/3 of Massachusetts schools face a major technological challenge. They lack enough computers, other equipment, or broadband capacity to test large numbers of students online simultaneously, according to a statewide survey by the Mass Department of Elementary and Secondary Education. North Reading is one of those communities facing that challenge. We do not have the devices nor the network to support them. Given the fact that North Reading recently passed not one, but 2 overrides in the amount of $75 million for a new high school/middle school, there's absolutely no way that we will be able to find those necessary funds. The most important component of park, however, is the effect it will have on our children. MCAS is an untimed test which is administered once per year. Park is a time test which is administered 2 times per year with long-term plans to add 2 additional tests. Not only will the test time itself be doubled, but the preparation will take at least twice as long as well. Many children, including my own daughter, already experience test anxiety. What will happen when they're asked not only to endure more testing, but to have the added stress of a ticking clock? I recently spoke to a friend's son who's 9 years old and attends one of our elementary schools. He said to me, "Mrs. Simone, what happens if the computer's slow and I run out of time? What happens indeed? Perhaps the most stressed out students will be those whose socioeconomic background doesn't provide them the same access to technology in the home that many other students have. Some of the children in our communities will be at a disadvantage right out of the gate because of that." In the aforementioned Globe article, there was also a quote from Glenn Kuchar, Executive Director of the Mass Association of School Committees, who stated, "The kids will be traumatized by a user-unfriendly system at a time when they're already under enormous stress. It's simply too much, too soon." Massachusetts has been consistently #1 in educational standards. Why are we rushing to implement a new system without fully understanding the ramifications to Massachusetts and, most importantly, to our children? Thank you so much.
Thank you. Are there any questions for Ms. Simone? Seeing none, I thank you for your testimony. Next, we have John Griffin.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. My name is John Griffin. I'm a policy fellow at Democrats for Education of Columbia, Massachusetts, a rising junior at Harvard College, and a proud graduate of Walton High School. I am also a former member of the Southeast Regional Student Advisory Council of the Board of Education, where we studied standards-based reforms and standardized testing in depth. Democrats for Education supports the Common Core and its mission to ensure quality education to all Massachusetts students. Since 1993, Massachusetts has led the nation in student-focused reform in education. By setting high standards and holding all parties accountable to those standards, we have raised the level of academic achievement in the Commonwealth. Today, Massachusetts students rank at the top of the nation, and that academic improvement does exist across the socioeconomic spectrum. While the opportunity gap still represents an insidious obstacle to true equality, our standards-based reforms represent a major step toward bridging it. The Common Core is an essentially progressive project, a continuance of reforms set in place in 1993 and in 2010. By measuring the skills that students need to succeed, we can better identify districts and schools in need of assistance. I want to repeat that. There are, of course, districts across the state that need more resources because they're suffering from endemic poverty systems. They might not have the computers or other resources that they need. But like the MCAS, the Common Core will make sure that the state can identify those districts and get them more resources. That is our goal. We can also ensure that all students who graduate from Massachusetts high school are prepared for college or for the workforce. We can continue our work to bridge the opportunity gap. By switching from the MCAS to the PARC, we can better measure technological proficiency so long as we do implement more resources. But it is too important that we make sure that all of our students have a good education, that we stop our progress now. We need to continue to implement the Common Core throughout the Commonwealth, especially in those communities of highest need. The spectrum of teaching to the test is nothing but a red herring when the test measures fundamental skills necessary to achievement that are often not taught in those schools where they're needed most. Not due to anyone's fault, but again due to systemic poverty issues. You must remember that the Common Core does not impose curriculum, it sets standards. The Massachusetts Constitution is clear. We have a duty to educate all of our children. Opposition is often a conservative project embraced by Tea Party Republicans. The goal of the Common Core is to utilize state resources to provide better and more equal education. Massachusetts lawmakers have thus far led the nation in progressive education reform. To align ourselves with the Tea Party, a local control crusade against state action in education would be a shameful regression and a blow to our students, especially in those communities that need us most. Thank you to all of you.
Thank you. Are there any questions for Mr. Griffin? Seeing none, I thank you. Shannon Dahlstrom?
Thank you. My name is Shannon Dahlstrom. I'm from Chelmsford, Massachusetts. I'm a parent of 2 little kids. My oldest is Morgan, and she happens to be my elementary school. I've crossed off a few things that have been repeated, so. But I want to emphasize a few things that are, a little different that in regards to park. That really concern me, so much so that as a CPA in a career that I love, I'm actually considering leaving my career to homeschool because I do not like what's happening with public education in Massachusetts and in other states. So here are a few of my concerns. No thorough cost analysis has been performed that includes the immense unfunded cost to towns for technology and bandwidth upgrades many do not have, all to take a test. There are school committees across the state being given very short notice to debate and discuss openly the pros and cons of using PARC or MCAS this coming year. But the Department of Education has offered no accountability to those who choose PARC. I find that to be more or less a bribe. What are schools going to think that are already dropping down to a level 3, to a level 4, or below? Even if they felt there was no good reason to choose PARC, wouldn't you consider taking it if it could save you for another year? Pearson has been awarded the sole contract to administer PARC. They are now being sued by a competitor for unfair bidding process out of New Mexico. This case is being allowed, and it will cause many problems for PARC on who will be administering it as we prepare for next year. Pearson has had numerous troubling violations with many states in the past, including just this past December, they settled without having to go to court with the New York Attorney General for $7.7 million for improper use of their nonprofit entity. also settled multiple cases of improper grading that has resulted in the blockage of many kids graduating or missing gifted and talented programs. There are so many conflicts of interest in regards to our Department of Education, which has been mentioned. We have Massachusetts teachers that are paid by PARC to go around to other teachers and schools to support PARC and talk about it and bolster it. Our Massachusetts, I'll skip the rest of the time, but I do have to say that I'm a Democrat. I've always voted Democrat. I am working with plenty of people in this state right now who are Democrats, and it doesn't matter to us what party lines at all. This is not a right or left issue. And coming out and saying that this was right-wingers and such is ridiculous. We work together, we oppose it, we oppose PARC and Common Core, and I ask you to support it.
Are there any questions for the members of the evening? Seeing none, thank you very much. Christine Funnel.
So the Common Core president, because there are several folks mentioned in there, the Common Core president, because many have mentioned in their testimony the concern of the unfunded mandate. I did just want to mention, for folks' general knowledge, that there is another bill moving through the legislature that they may be very interested in and may also be interested in tracking, which is an IT bond bill that has already passed through the House and now sits with the Senate, which includes a substantial chunk of funding for cities and towns to upgrade educational technology, IT technology for the districts to bring districts up to sort of 21st century standards, which would include assisting those districts in becoming part ready. So while that bill is not passed and on the governor's desk yet, it is something that I wanted to mention as relevant to this debate, given the level of concern that's been expressed today.
Thank you. My name is Christine Fennell, and I want to thank you all for listening to my concerns today. I agree with a lot of the concerns that people have brought up today, and so there's a couple of things that I want to speak to. I have, since 2006, I have been, I've founded an organization called Commonwealth Covenant Keepers, and I will come in and testify on legislation that comes up that does not respect what I believe is the foundation of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, our Judeo-Christian foundation. So, in general, I believe that government should not have a one-size-fits-all attitude towards education. I live in Medford, but I used to live in the Metro West area, and I raised 3 sons there, and I became very concerned when they were little about what was happening in our Massachusetts, and I started homeschooling. When I had my 3rd son, it became very difficult, and I became, I'm a graduate of Massachusetts College of Art. I'm a grateful graduate because I was able to go to a state school and pay my way through, which is very difficult for kids today. I think, unfortunately, the quality of education is dropping since we got out of the classroom. Because I remember as a child saying prayers, reading Psalms. It was part of my foundation. I wish we could go back to that. And so I think it's a religious freedom issue that we're actually talking about with Common Core, because there are thousands of people that would like to get into speak to this issue who can't because they're out working and trying to support their families. And so I come to speak for them. And I taught in Christian school for about 10 years in Metro West and communities of Milford, Ashland, Framingham. I'm a local columnist, Metro West Daily News. I'm a writer and an artist, and I'm very concerned about this one-size-fits-all approach to education
classroom because creativity is so important. And you can demonstrate creativity if the teacher is allowed to, but in the Common Core, it's becoming so limiting for the teacher that that really concerns me. So I think well, thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions for Ms. Simone? Seeing none, I thank you for your testimony. Jerry, please? Sure. Sorry, I'm sure. I knew I was mangled that.
Everybody
Yes.
Ladies and gentlemen, good morning, and thank you for this opportunity to speak in favor of this bill as a parent. My name is Jerry Tillett. Since 1985, I have lived in Hopkinton with my wife. We have 5 children, 4 of them graduated Hopkinton High School. 4 are college grads. Our oldest became one of the youngest vice presidents a few months ago in his company. The next is a biomedical engineer in a great company. The third got bored with engineering, transferred to family for finance, and within 3.5 years after leaving high school, she had her degree. She now is an analyst with a small manufacturing firm in Westboro. My youngest daughter just graduated UMass, and my smallest, my youngest, is still in high school. The point is this: my children have superior preparation for college and careers. They are the benefactors of the best state public education system in the nation. Others in these hearings alluded to that fact, and also that Bay State students compare favorably in math and science to the best in the world. Massachusetts built a world-class educational system. It attracts world-class teachers, and they produce wondrous results. I owe it to the children who follow my children to be here to put the question to you, our leadership. Are we incurring costs for an approach that is an improvement over what we have already achieved in Massachusetts in education? You see, I want for all children what my children have. Yesterday, I attended a parents' forum hosted by my school superintendent. It was clear from her answers that Hopkinton is out front in transitioning to Common Core and Park. It was also clear that the tests themselves are still in the developmental stage. Yet my town is pressing ahead. I wonder how much of this is driven by the competition among towns and education teams intent on being, quote, the best. The flip side, you see, of having talented, competent administrators is that they can do almost anything demanded of them, even when we demand the unreasonable. Please support this bill. Give us all time to confidently answer the question, is what we're doing in the best interest of our children? Thank you for listening.
Thank you. Are there any questions? Seeing none, I thank you for your testimony. Brett. I can't pronounce his last name. Brett here?
Good morning, chairs, members of the committee. My name is Brett Coach. I'm here as a member of the Freetown Lakeville Regional School District. I don't represent the committee, so my opinions, but I've raised most of the concerns. Myself, I've been a user interface designer for over 20 years, Minnesota, Massachusetts. I'm currently an IT director at Worcester College. I'm also a parent of 3 children, and a grown-up Massachusetts going through the Massachusetts school system myself. I have 3 primary issues I just wanted to report. These maybe even footnotes, people speaking before me, because I certainly do agree with all of them in support of 4094. Primarily, my first point is that the economics that we're looking at now are considering reviewing. One of the talking points of the park itself is that this is supposed to democratize access to evaluation for all students, regardless of level of literacy. I think that with MCAS being a leader than it is globally, it would not be difficult to redesign the interface of MCAS, and it would be inexpensive to redesign that interface so that a park could appeal to students of different levels of literacy, or whatever challenge they may have. My second remark is regarding PPRA, which is about, of course, as you know, the policy that is supposed to allow parent review of protect the rights of students and information gathered. It typically is cited as regarding surveys, make sure that parents have reviewed a survey that might have something to do with sexual orientation or anything else the parent might be inappropriate. However, as a school committee member reviewing our policies recently, I have reread the entirety of PPRA, and there's a section that says, it applies when they're talking about any sort of new teaching strategy or evaluation system or changes to the delivery of instruction. I'm curious about this. As a layperson, I don't know how it doesn't apply to park, but I know that parents have not been able to see park yet, and I wonder about how park stands in other PPRA. Thirdly, what I've been told recently is in regard to who can take the trial. It is my understanding that students with disabilities are barred from taking the trial. It is not 508 compliant. It is not ADA compliant. As a student growing up with reading disabilities in Massachusetts and going through that system, I am thoroughly disappointed that the park is a trial, which is supposed to appeal so broadly and gather so much information. It's casting aside students with disabilities. I can't understand how to move forward with this exactly. And those are my concerns. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for your testimony. Just with respect to the last comment that you made, we'll certainly look into this. But it's my understanding that actually the park test is more easily accommodated by students with disabilities, largely because of the electronic nature of the way it's given. There are accommodations that are most easily administered, but we will certainly look into this situation.
That in regards to my